Welcome again as we continue to look at tips for Wednesday's IB Biology exam. These tips, of course, are based on recommendations from the IB Biology examiners from the November 2020 exams. Stop here and write your answer to this question. Now, this particular question provides an excellent example of one of the downfalls which affects many students as they go into the IB Biology exam. Because in this particular question, it's likely that students would have focused on their understanding of speciation, talking about geographical isolation, a change in the conditions of the struggle for existence, and over time, a new species arising, neglecting the main phrase in the question, which is the gene pool. This particular question is focused very much on the students showing their understanding of how gene frequencies change in gene pools as a result of things like geographical separation, differences in the struggle for existence, and then over a long period of time, gene or allele frequencies changing and you having speciation. So in this simple example here, I am highlighting the term gene pool. Let's consider, for example, we had some mice living on a tropical island, let's say, and in those mice, big M, little m gave the mouse a nice medium-sized coat. Two big M's would give the mouse a very short coat, and two little m's gave the mouse a very long coat. So while it was warm in the summer, it tended to get a little bit cold during the winter months. So these mice would be best adapted if they had the medium length coat. So that would mean the genotype big M, little m would be favored in the struggle for existence. So therefore, in our gene pool here, as you see, what you would find is that individuals with the favored genotype would predominate. But of course, because of random mating within this population, from time to time, you would get the two big M's, and also you would get the two little m's. Now, this gene pool could be affected. For instance, if there is a catastrophic event, like an earthquake, for example, that causes a piece of this island, this tropical island, to fragment, and then to take a few mice with it and to drift into a much colder latitude. Over time, what's going to happen is that the allele frequencies will change, because with new conditions in the struggle for existence now, the long-haired coat mouse, which is brought about by the two recessive alleles being present, they would win the struggle for existence. They would predominate, whereas the other genotypes would be less likely to survive. They would win the struggle for existence. They would pass on their favored alleles to the next generation, and over time, the gene pool would change its makeup, because now this island is separated by this one. There's geographic separation. There's reproductive isolation happening here as well. And over a long period of time, it's not just the gene for coat color that would undergo this kind of selection. With these two populations isolated, this one would begin to go in its own direction with different factors affecting the struggle for existence. And this would stay as it was. And over a long period of time, if these two populations remain isolated, it is plausible that bringing one of these individuals back to this population and trying to get it to reproduce would be unsuccessful. And if that is the case, then you would have had speciation. Speciation because the populations are not able to interbreed. So now you could take a look at the actual mark scheme that gave the 5 marks for this question, and you might realize that even though you felt confident you knew the answer to this, your explanation might only be covering 2 or 3 of those. And this is why it's so important to first read the question carefully and, of course, practice with a few past exams, and reflect on whether your answers are going to satisfy the ones that the examiners seek to give full points. And now you can take a look at the actual mark scheme used by the examiners and compare the answer that you wrote down earlier to this one. And in our last video for the HL section of the exam tips for 2021, we look at a discussion of genetic modification in plants. You can click on the card above to access this.